What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and apologize. I was going to say apologize and apologizes at the same time, but apologies, which was neither one of those words, for missing you last week with these Bleacher Report shows. I had some travel. I thought I was going to be able to squeeze the shows in. I wasn't able to, so that's my bad. Thankfully, it landed at a time of the year where football obviously is important. It's always the most important thing, but you get what I'm saying. But if you're new around here, hello, I do these shows excuse me, every Tuesday and Thursday in the Bleacher Report app at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can catch them after the fact, of course, in the BR app. You can also catch them on demand on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. A big old salute to those of you who are checking us out on the tube of you over at Blog and the Boys. If you love the Cowboys, please subscribe. If you love what I do, which includes a lot of golf stuff, I was actually on a golf work trip, doing some stuff around Cliffhangers, the new par 3 course over at Big Cedar Golf near Branson at Big Cedar Lodge. I've got a lot of stuff cooking on that all over social and my personal YouTube channel that is linked down in the description below for those of you who are on the tube. You can hit me up on social media. You saw how Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever, Threads, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok. I'm all over the place. I promise you, if you consume content there about the Dallas Cowboys or golf, you can find me. But today we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys as we always do, and we're looking at some props, some odds, and there are some that are funny and some that are funky. And I think that a common expression is obviously Vegas knows, the desert knows, the buildings in Las Vegas are big and tall and shiny for a reason, right? Like we can discern a little bit from what Vegas is listing as far as potential for the Cowboys. That doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that what they're listing is gospel, that what they're listing is a guarantee. But it is interesting nonetheless to get a look to see how odds makers view the Cowboys' chances, because I'll just be straight up with you right at the very beginning. I disagree with a lot of it. Now, I am not the most bullish person on the Cowboys. I think if you have followed me, you know that I definitely hold their feet to the fire when I feel like they're being silly. And I think they're still being silly with certain things, right? The Micah deal still not done. Deron Bland, Tyler Smith. I'm going to continue to say George Pickens, Brandon Aubrey. Like we can go round and round and round, but there are a lot of things they've done good, right? Like all the offseason moves, Solomon Thomas and the trades, Kenneth Murray and Kyrie Elam, and hello, George Pickens in the draft. We're pumped about Tyler Booker, right? If you parse and filter through the memes and the things the national media likes to scream about this team, you can see that there are legitimate reasons to be excited. But because the national media can be the national media about the Cowboys, it does sometimes apply a bit of a curve as far as how people view this team. I've covered them for a decade now professionally. I've obviously been a fan of them all my life, and I think we can understand this. I think that we can, we're not homers and saying, oh, they just hate our team. That's not my point here. My point is simply, somebody in your life who is a little bit more annoying because they know you're a Cowboys fan, right? There's that tax that's involved because you root for the Cowboys. So because they're the Cowboys, they don't get evaluated fairly or objectively, like we're saying. And that even applies to odds. Let's take a look at this here. We're looking over at our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is our preferred sports betting partner at SB Nation. So right here, this hasn't changed. Let me zoom in a little bit for you here. This is week 1. We know the Cowboys are playing in the season opening slot on the road at Philadelphia. 6.5 is the line. That's where it opened. It's kind of moved now that I say that, between 6.5. So that isn't totally the truth, but that's not what we're interested in. I want to go to win totals right away. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys. I've been talking about this several times, been talking about it with different people, talking about it with you here. I notably spoke about it with my friend Kay Adams on her show, and that was the clip that made the rounds. These are the lines, the odds for the Cowboys as far as different win totals are concerned. If you don't know how this works, over 3.5 wins, the line for that is minus 1,600. What that means is you would have to bet $1,600 to profit $100. That's that minus sign. Other side of the coin, plus 800. That means if you were to bet if you were to bet $100, you were to take home $800. So that means they're saying, fewer than 3.5 wins is pretty unlikely. That's what you can discern from the lines. That's what we're doing here. So the over-under for Cowboys wins has been set at 7.5. That's pretty much wherever you look. That's the most common figure, the most common number. Again, this kind of thing tends to fluctuate from book to book, whether it's FanDuel or DraftKings or MGM, wherever, ESPN Bet. There's a lot of obviously sports books out there who have different odds, but they're all generally in the same neighborhood. So for the purposes of our discussion here, we're looking at the number 7.5. This is silly. I can't believe still, and I mentioned it at the top, and I'm not, pounding this because I want you to bet it or anything like that. This isn't betting advice. This is what can we tell about the team by these lines. I don't think that you are being fair. I don't think you're being a real person if you think the Cowboys are falling underneath that. So this is Cowboys history. Shout out to our friends at Pro Football Reference. They're great friends of mine. They do fantastic work. So for the purposes of this discussion, let's even go all the way back to 2011 here, the beginning of the Jason Garrett era. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit further. Let's go back to 2006. I like to look at things. 2006 was the year that NBC took over the Sunday Night Football package. I believe it was Roger Goodell's first year as NFL commissioner. So it's kind of an important inflection point in NFL history. That being said, as far as the Cowboys are concerned, in Cowboys history, it was 2006, October of that year. Monday Night Football, coming out of the tunnel at halftime when Bill Parcells said, I'm going to Romo, and the team has never looked the same. Obviously, because Romo was the franchise quarterback, and then Dak Prescott has been the franchise quarterback. So ever since that moment in 2006, every single one of these years, granted, we're looking at almost 20 years of data at this point in time, the Cowboys have had a verifiable franchise quarterback with a handful of exceptions when that player was hurt. And remember, 7.5 is the number here. And also remember, we're going now on year 5 of having 17 games in the regular season, which makes it even easier, so to speak, to pick up 8 wins, which in this case is north of 7.5. So 2006, and that's because Romo took over in the middle of that season. The Cowboys cleared that. And again, I'm not saying the 2006 team has anything to do with the 2025 squad, but I think this point is obvious if you look at it in totality. 2007, number 1 seed in the NFC. We don't have to talk about how things ended. 2008 was one of the most disappointing years in the drought era for the Cowboys, and they still won 9 regular season games. That's because they lost a few down the stretch, including infamously the final game at Texas Stadium, as well as 44-6 on the road in Philadelphia. 2009, they bounce back. They win the division. They win a playoff game back-to-back weeks, week 17 wild card round against the Eagles, even though Donovan McNabb did the air guitar. 2010, that's one of those exceptions that I'm talking about here. Tony Romo gets hurt halfway through the year, collarbone, all that jazz. It's horrible, blah, blah. Cowboys stumble. Wade Phillips is fired. And even still, like with all hell raining down upon the 2010 Dallas Cowboys, even then, they won 6 games. Okay, just keep that in mind here, because again, this isn't quite 20 years, but that's 1 year in which they fell short. The next 3 years, hilariously, they play week 17 NFC East title games against all 3 of their division rivals. They lose them all, but still, in all 3 of those years, the first 3 of Jason Garrett's tenure, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, north of 7.5 wins. 2014, everything clicks. Romo's in his bag. Dez is on fire. Jason Witten, all Y option, all the stuff, all of our wonderful memories that are now over a decade old. 12 wins, wild card playoff win against Detroit. Dez caught it, etc. 2015, same sort of thing. Romo gets hurt in week 2 on the road against Philadelphia. He ultimately misses 12 games, and the Cowboys win 1 without him. They fall. This is the most, that they've fallen beneath this 7.5 mark, but that's because they were terrible without Tony Romo. So again, that's 1. I'll give it to you. Fine. And even if you don't want to give me that the franchise quarterback missed 12 games, I'll still give it to you. 2016, rookie Dak, rookie Zeke, 13 wins, number 1 seed. 3rd and 20, Jaron Cook, etc., but still almost double the 7.5 mark. 9-7 in 2017, an incredibly disappointing year. The Zeke Elliott, will he, won't he be suspended saga, but again, still win over 7.5 games. This is the Dak Prescott era now, obviously from 2016 on. 2018, solid team, trade for Amari Cooper midway through, win 10 games, win the NFC East, win a playoff game at home. Shout out Brian Schottenheimer, who was the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks, opposite of things. Boom, over. 2019, disappointing year, final one of Jason Garrett's tenure. And I promise I'm not giving you all these details for fluff, but it's because there was drama. There was crap happening to this team, and they still won 8 games. 2020, Dak Prescott gets hurt in week 5, doesn't even finish that game, and they still, in Mike McCarthy's first year, all the COVID stuff, obviously, still win 6 games, still fall just shy of 7.5. All right. Then Mike McCarthy, he's cooking with gas. 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. And they go to the playoffs every single year, the Niners, the Packers, etc., but still well north of 7.5. Last year was one of the most toxic, self-induced levels of toxicity seasons that the Cowboys have had in the drought era. Completely self-induced drama, all in, blah, blah, blah. Dak Prescott gets hurt. It was pure, absolute just chaos from start to finish. We hated every single second of it, and they still won 7 games. You mean to tell me that with a significantly improved roster, I am not telling you they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's not my point here. My point is that 7.5 is papitas, dude. It is so easy. It is so simple to take this. This is the Cowboys tax. This is so many people go, they haven't won the Super Bowl in 30 years. Ha! Dak sucks. Ha! Descott and the Sun. Yeah, we know all that stuff. We hate them more than you do, bro. But what we're telling you is that 7.5 is hilariously low for this team, not just in the Dak Prescott era, although that's obviously true, but literally for almost 20 years, quite literally almost for the entire drought outside of those first few seasons, obviously, when they were in quarterback purgatory. So if you don't want to take that, that's up to you. Again, I'm not telling you. I would never tell you what to do with your money, but 7.5 wins. Let's put this back up on your screen because I'm telling you the over is the smart play. Over 7.5 wins is minus 125. So it seems some people are picking up to this as we have moved along because I've been saying this for a few months now. But that's just 7.5 wins. Let's go to divisions because this one's interesting. All right. The Eagles are good. Obviously, the Commanders were in the NFC title game. The Cowboys are fine, and the Giants exist. Now, it's important to tell you, I'm not going to rip through the entire history like we just did a moment ago, that nobody, no team, not a single one, not a set of souls has won the NFC East in back-to-back years in over 20 years. It was 2004, Philadelphia Eagles. It's been a very long time. And kind of like we just said, do the 2005 Giants have anything to do with the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles? No, of course not. It would be stupid to say that they did. But like I say all the time with Brandon Lee Godden, my buddy over on the NFC East mixtape, which we're trying to figure out, it has nothing to do with it, but like you can't ignore it, right? It's been 20 years. I mean, like we're about to reach Super Bowl 60, right? Like think about that. This is the season of Super Bowl 60, and it's been over 20 years now. So while it doesn't mean anything, it's also not something that I can throw away. It's also not something that I can say, oh, that's stupid. That means absolutely nothing. It is a weird factor. It's kind of more than a coincidence. It speaks to the parity in the NFL, obviously, the parity in divisions, the parity. Every year there's always a team that goes worst to first. I don't think it's going to be the Giants, but my point here is that literally 20 years of history would suggest that the Eagles are not going to repeat as NFC East champions. That's not me saying the Eagles suck. I'm not salty. I really don't care, but I'm just telling you the facts. And so in that spirit, do we think that Washington's going to be good enough? Because if there's a Cowboys bet I like, if there's a Cowboys bet or a line that I think is maybe worth kind of keeping your eye on, it is this one because it's so large. It's plus 550. Again, that's bet $100, win $550, right? So that's kind of nice, right? Like if you're going to throw, 10 jelly beans or something at something, I think that this is maybe the one to consider because of the history working against the Eagles and because of the history, quite frankly, working against the Commanders. They really over-delivered in year one. I'm in no way saying I don't believe in them. I'm in no way saying I think there's going to be massive regression. I do think it's fair to believe there will be some regression, right? But I think Jaden Daniels is very good. I think Dan Quinn's a good head coach. Obviously, I think they have a lot of right pieces. I think that I know I've seen the chatter about Deebo Samuel. I think we're just acting like he's nothing when he's still a pretty good player. Laramie Tunsil, like they've done a lot of things to that roster. That being said, the Cowboys have still kind of owned them. That being said, the Cowboys, even still, with all of the stuff that we acknowledge is real and actually happened last year, the Cowboys still beat them in Washington, and the only game they lost to the Commanders, and again, I don't mean to like only and explain everything away, was in week 18 when they had punted the season and started Trey Lance and everything was super duper awful. So that being said, I like the Cowboys odds over Washington, and I like the idea of Philadelphia not repeating because of the history as noted. So that one is worth taking a look at if you you care about how I feel about things. But let's go to that was Super Bowl. We'll go there in a second. This is odds to win each conference, if that isn't obvious. So this is how Vegas ranks the teams in the NFC. So I'll move myself out of the screen. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. That's perfect. Obviously, the Eagles are the favorite. This is to win the NFC. This is to reach the Super Bowl. All right, so this isn't even to make the NFC a championship game, right? We recognize that is the first, kind of demon that we have to exercise as Dallas Cowboys fans. That being said, presuming the Cowboys get there, this is their odds to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. As you can see, Dallas plus 2,200. Look, again, Cowboys tax, Cowboys inflation, whatever you want to call it. You mean to tell me, all right, I don't know who you are. All right. I don't know you from Adam or from Eve. All right. I assume, though, that because you're here, you've taken the step to consuming extracurricular Cowboys content, right? Like you're here, you're not just consuming, cable television, you're not just consuming newspapers or something like that. You have Googled, YouTube searched, followed me on social media. You have done something that suggests you are an educated Cowboys fan. Not saying that following me necessarily suggests that. It also doesn't necessarily not suggest that, but I think you get my point. Like you have made a conscious effort to go a step beyond a lot of people to consume this content. So because of that, I trust that you are of a legitimate level of intellect from a baseline standpoint. And so now that we have established this, you, my legitimate intellectuals who are all gathered around the proverbial campfire here, you mean to tell me that we all believe that the Minnesota Vikings, and they're a great team. All right. I'm just picking one. The Minnesota Vikings with J.J. McCarthy, who is a question mark and could be an amazing quarterback. He is a question mark, though, that we believe he's the Vikings. If you can't quite see that, they are plus 1,000. All right. The Cowboys are plus 2,200, over twice as long of underdogs to pull this feat off. The only team who has legitimate odds here, obviously, is nobody. Nobody's in the negative odds, but you get my point here. Like that. I'm sorry, that math isn't mathing. And fine, maybe you're like, dude, the Vikings are really good. Kevin O'Connell's awesome. Like, I believe in J.J. McCarthy, national championship, whatever. Fine. Even if you believe that, you mean to tell me you think the Bucs? I mean, and I like the Bucs. I think that what the Bucs have done, as of late, is pretty good. I think Baker Mayfield had a really underrated season last year. But obviously, Chris Godwin's coming back, injured, whatever. But and some of this is circumstance, right? The Bucs just have to win their NFC South, and then they're 2 games away from the NFC title game. So that's a much easier said than done sort of thing than it is for, say, the Cowboys, who have to contend and compete in the NFC East. But the Bears, and look, I know we love Ben Johnson. I know we think he's a genius and all this stuff, but we think the Bears have a better chance to win the, what have the Bears done? I mean, if we're considering, well, look, RJ, I can't give you the Cowboys. Look how bad they were last year. The Bears are on this list. The Bears are and I like the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are also kind of a sneaky bit underrated. I like them as a play. I would, consider some jelly beans on them, like I said. But look, let's count these teams out loud, because in case you forgot, there are 16 teams in the NFC total. All right. Eagles 1, Lions 2, Rams, Niners, Commanders, Packers, Vikings, Buccaneers, Chicago Bears, Arizona Cardinals. That's 10 of the 16 teams. You mean to tell me that you don't believe the Cowboys are a top 10 team in their conference, not in the NFL? Because if you want to talk and have that conversation, there's a lot of really good teams in the AFC. I totally get that. But you think that there are 10 teams in the NFC who are effectively, I know that this is specifically with regards to winning the NFC Championship game, but there are 10 teams who are better than the Cowboys. And like we talked about with the NFC East, it's also fair to say, well, dude, they haven't even been in this freaking game for 30 years now. So why would I take this bet? I agree with you that historical context or, lens is worth looking at things through. But ultimately, it is absurd to tell me these are the only teams the Cowboys are ahead of. The only teams are the Seahawks. What have the Seahawks done to fall down this list so far? I mean, goodness gracious, I think they're also being disrespected. The Falcons and the Panthers and the Saints. Again, we mentioned the Bucs getting inflated by the NFC South, and the Giants. Again, I'm not here. I promise. Please do not let your takeaway from this being like, that guy just thinks the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl. He's Mr. Weed and Boys. No, none of those people actually exist. What I am telling you is this is absurd. This is basically inverse of last year's standings, and that's why it's kind of absurd. Let's look at awards. This, I think, is really only relevant relative to Defensive Player of the Year, but this is regular season MVP. Let's look at show more. So where's our first Cowboy? Dak Prescott. When it comes to awards, and we are looking at MVP, let me make sure I keep that on the screen here for you. It's a quarterback-driven award, and it's also pretty narrative-driven, right? So Lamar has a couple at this point, right? I wouldn't take Lamar because it's really difficult to win a third. Josh Allen just won when it's very difficult to repeat. That's like he could have an amazing season, but the voters tend to be like, well, we just gave it to him. Let's give it to someone else. Mahomes is kind of, we talk about this in a lot of ways, like LeBron James could win every MVP, right? Or could have won MVP for a million years. You get my point. Joe Burrow has never won an MVP. I like that bet. Jalen Hurts, I think this isn't a Hurts sucks thing, but like I wouldn't take that. I don't think anybody would. Stroud is one I would consider because again, if he were to lead the Texans to like the 1 seed, I could kind of see that story. You know what I mean? Like fresh blood. Not that he hasn't been around, but you get my point. Jared Goff, obviously, you're kind of looking for the story that the league wants to kind of award and have be the face of their season. And so in that sense, if Dak couldn't win it 2 years ago, like I think it would have to take something Herculean for Dak to win MVP at this point in time. And it would have to take, significantly clearing a lot of these dudes in statistical measures. And I wouldn't bank on that personally, but those are just my 2 cents. Let's look at defensive player of the year, because this is the one. This is the one that I think matters the most to us and to our agendas. Our agendas being Cowboys front office, please stop being silly and just pay the man, pay any man, pay the men who are up to be paid. Like it's a very simple request that we have from you. That being said, Micah Parsons is the favorite. He is the betting favorite as of today. Today is July the 1st. Happy early 4th of July. I will be here on Thursday and have a video dropping on Wednesday and Friday as well. So if you're on YouTube, you got content all week, and that's our plan. Obviously, like I said, apologies, I was traveling last week. But that being said, happy early 4th of July. It is officially football month. We have a football game at the very end of this month in the preseason. And as of today, Micah Parsons is the betting favorite to be Defensive Player of the Year and is still currently, at this moment in time, set to enter the final year of his contract with the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, these silly little jokers. All right. This is the one that is very possible in my mind. And I thought it was possible last year, and he got hurt and the team sucked. And so that plays a factor, right? There's the narrative, there's the juice that goes behind it all. Aiden Hutchinson has a lot of narrative juice, right? Coming back from the injury, he's never won it, because that's the thing here. Myles Garrett won it. TJ Watt won it. Max Crosby never won it. Will Anderson Jr. never won it. Nick Bosa won it. So you're talking about of the top 6 names here, the top, dudes. I mean, all due respect to Jared Verse and Nick Bosa has won it, and Trey Hendrickson. I think we all think Trey Hendrickson is due for some regression wherever he ultimately is playing this year. So let's kind of take him off this list. It's typically a pass rusher. It's very, very rarely a corner. Shout out to Stephon Gilmore, right? I see Jalen Carter and Chris Jones here, right? But it's typically a pass rusher. So if we acknowledge that it's probably not going to be Myles Garrett, it's probably not going to be TJ Watt, it's probably not going to be Nick Bosa, it boils down to who has the best season and who has the best season on a team that's really good. Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby. We think the Raiders are going to be, Basuda, right? Like duh. And the Lions, who knows, with losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. So it's kind of like this is my long way of saying it's kind of Micah's turn. You know what I mean? Like, because Myles already has one and TJ, everything, like it's kind of Micah's turn to get this thing. And so, and by the way, when I mentioned corners getting it, I also overlooked Patrick Surtain. So good job by me. But that being said, see, like it's rare. That's a once in a blue moon type of thing. I mean, it's kind of silly to bet the favorite on a lot of things, right? I mean, but like it makes a lot of sense that Micah would win Defensive Player of the Year. And so if I say all that to say, if they don't pay him, like right now, they're already negotiating with a dude who has all the leverage, right? Like and we say this all the time, but right now they're negotiating with a dude who has all the leverage. All right. And if they let him win Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, what like it all becomes even more absurd. It all becomes even more ridiculous. It all becomes even, I mean, and they almost actually had this happen to them with CeeDee Lamb in 2023. So this would be, basically the same thing happening with Micah Parsons, but I digress. All right, let's go to whoopsie, almost destroyed this. Let's look at one more area here, and let's look at Super Bowl. Let's look at the Super Bowl. We looked at the NFC Championship game. Here are odds to win the Super Bowl. So as you see, the Buffalo Bills are the favorite right now. The Baltimore Ravens are second favorite. The Philadelphia are not even. If I could read, they're co-favorites. The Bills and Ravens are with the reigning Super Bowl champions. The Eagles, Chiefs, right on their trail. I mean, the NFC teams are going to be in the same order, obviously, as our NFC standings. But this will tell us how many teams at large the odds makers think can win the Super Bowl over the Cowboys. So let's count them. We got the Bills. Let's go. Bills, Ravens, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Rams, Commanders, Niners, Vikings. That's 9. We're at 9. And Bengals 10, Packers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. The Cowboys are, and look, you can figure out where they're ranked as far as like, odds that are, the same. So like technically they're not 18th or whatever. But yeah. they Vegas ultimately, the ultimate way to say this and compute this, I guess, is that Vegas thinks there's 17 teams who are better than the Cowboys, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, who gave George Pickens to the Cowboys. All right, including not just in the NFC now, but the Denver Broncos. Like, if you think regression is coming for Jane Daniels, I don't know how you wouldn't think it's not coming for Bo Nix and the Broncos. The Chargers, I know that we like Jim Harbaugh and everything, but are we really willing to say this? The Bengals, I certainly agree, are a team that should be in consideration here. I mean, I just look, I am not a homer, and I think that any and every piece of work that I've done has I don't know how to put this background back. There we go. If you have followed me for some time, I think that it's obvious that I'm not a homer. I love the Cowboys, and I want the Cowboys to be great more than I want most things. I'm very grateful for my job and very grateful that I get to talk about them, and I analyze them and criticize them because I care. And so, but I am not a homer. I am not the person who will tell you like, oh, no, they're winning it. This is the year. This is number 6, whatever. Like I used to be that person when I was in high school because I didn't know any better. Things like that. And so that being said, we've established I'm not a homer. But if you think that they are a bottom half team, I don't think you're being fair. I really don't. I think you're part of the problem. You're part of the mass that just like, oh, Dak sucks and whatever. Oh yeah, he threw all those picks that one year, and Jerry's going to call the plays. Like, right, like we don't have to talk about them this way. There's room for nuance, and there's room for context, and there's room for legitimacy, and there's room for logic, and there's room for reason, and there's room for back and forth discussion that we can have as adults. And I think if you have that conversation, these are the teams that I would put ahead of the Cowboys. Like, quite simply, let me put a list of them on here. Let me go to let's go to Pro Football Reference one more time. I lost it. There we go. So let's do this. 1 click, 2 clicks, and I liked that remove background thing. This was cool. This was slick. There we go. I know it's white and it's kind of strange. These are the AFC teams I would put ahead of the Cowboys and feel pretty fair doing so. Buffalo, that's the only one in the AFC East. That's one. In the AFC, I'd put Baltimore and Cincinnati ahead of the Cowboys for sure. In the AFC North. In the AFC South, I'm not putting Houston. Maybe they're on equal terms as the Cowboys, but still. In the AFC West, Kansas City is without a doubt. I mean, I could be talked into the Chargers, I suppose. So fine, that's fine. Let's say there's 5 teams in the AFC better than the Cowboys. All right. In the NFC East, I know the Eagles won the Super Bowl. You can't really fight against that. So that's 6. Washington, again, I gave you the Chargers. I'm not going there. 6, whatever, 6.5. The Lions, okay, fine. 7. I'm not taking the Vikings or the Packers over the Cowboys right now. Again, I think that they get, the inverse. They get a little bit of the like bump because, they're not the Cowboys. That's the way these things kind of tend to go. In the NFC South, I'm sorry, Bucks, I can't do it. I'll do the Rams. Fine. I'm at 8 total teams. 8, whatever. You can you can call it 8. You can call it maybe 9 teams in the entire NFL that I would say, look, actually, let's rephrase that because it was kind of a confusing way to sell it. I think there are somewhere between 8 and 11 teams better than the Cowboys at any given moment, right? Because that can move. That line can fluctuate. The Cowboys can move and fluctuate, right? That's why, power rankings are so interesting because they do adjust on a week-to-week basis. So I think the Cowboys right now are somewhere between a fringe top 10 team and fringe 13th, 14th team across the entire NFL. So that's why if you're telling me like they're a bottom half team, if you're telling me they're not even a top 10 team in the NFC, I can't take you seriously. And again, I'm not a homer. I don't think like, oh, watch out, here they come, America's team, blah, blah, get ready for the Netflix special. That's not my point in any one way or another. But I think that my whole point in this discussion was, I think you agree. I assume you agree that the Cowboys don't get evaluated fairly. I don't know how you couldn't agree with that at this point in time, even if you are part of the people who love to laugh at them, right? So that being said, because they're not evaluated fairly, these lines and these odds and these props, they're not fairly or objectively listed, right? Like we talked about that with the 7.5 wins. Like if everything we talked about, the whole almost 20 years of history relative to the 7.5 wins line was true about the Baltimore Ravens, we would sit here and be like, man, they're a machine. You know what I mean? But we don't, because of the Cowboys and because of who they are and the notoriety and the infamousy and all this stuff. Like we're just like, oh, they're losers. And look, they've lost, right? Like they haven't won the Super Bowl, right? Again, you got to get in line behind me to criticize them. But the idea that, they're going to be bad because they were bad last year and they were, kind of only barely bad. And even then only barely bad, or that's a really difficult, I was going to say barely bad, but barely bad because the front office designed them to be that way. That's all I'm saying is have the whole conversation out loud. please. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on social media. I am at RJ Ochoa on most platforms, X, Instagram, Threads. I'm on TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. You can find my Facebook page, like it there, and obviously follow and get all the updates on the book if that's your preferred method. I'm on Blue Sky. You can hit me up and follow me on LinkedIn as well. Email is rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe here to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. Like the video, tell a friend, share the link, etc. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, but my YouTube channel, doing a lot of golf stuff. Like I said, no stoppage of Cowboy stuff. I just love golf. So I started doing this stuff this offseason. It's been a lot of fun. The link to everything is down in the description below. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I will be back with you on Thursday, July the 3rd, as far as the Bleacher Report show is concerned, but back here on Tuesday, not even 24 hours later, on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel with an interview with somebody who you know well. I'll just leave it at that. But thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out, and we will see you next time.